Hi, and welcome to Berry Aftercare, the podcast. I'm Dr. Connie Stapleton, and I am both grateful and truly honored that you are spending your time with me for a little while today while I talk about anger. No, not anger. So many people are uncomfortable with anger. We're going to talk about anger, its role in your weight, and your overall health. In the last several sessions, I've been talking about our overall health, part of our overall lifestyle, and not just what goes in your mouth and how much movement you get. As a bariatric patient, yeah, the first year is so full of, like Laura Preston says, it's a full time job, making sure you get in enough water, take your vitamins, get all the protein you need, blah, blah, blah. It's a full time job. Hopefully your world expands a little bit as you get these things down and you have a routine around your water and your protein and your vitamins and the things you need to do. And you start paying attention again to relationships and friendships and your job and your children, and your world rounds out a little bit. Your rounded out world is your lifestyle. All the areas of your life make up your lifestyle. And how you live your life in all of these areas contributes a great deal to your overall health. And in the last couple of episodes, I've been talking about how an attitude of joy, an attitude of gratitude, or not having a lot of joy in your life can lead to health issues. Chronic stress is leading to tremendous health issues for people. As an overweight person, you probably got frustrated, as I hear from a lot of people, that every time you went to the doctor, they blamed a hangnail on your weight. Well, science is clear that stress, unrepressed emotions from a lifetime can be adding to chronic inflammation in our bodies. And this chronic inflammation is leading to cancers and high blood pressure and strokes and all the things, right? So it's not just weight that contributes to all of these unhealthy problems in our bodies. Yeah, weight isn't going to help anything, but you're on the journey to maintain a healthy weight. So, in addition to maintaining your healthy weight, what I want to do as part of Berry Aftercare is to help you look at the other areas of your life that can add to good health or take away from good health and cause disease. And unrepressed anger is one of those things that can lead to dis-ease within your body and lead to chronic health problems. So we're going to talk about, again, anger, its role in your weight, and your overall health. So the four big highlights are going to be anger being one of those things that's eating you, reasons people avoid expressing anger, and how this unexpressed anger is negatively affecting your health. Finally, what is a healthy expression of anger? So, you've heard people say it's not just what you're eating, it's what's eating you in relation to weight. So, it's true. A lot of people will identify themselves as emotional eaters. And most of us know what that is, right? If you're feeling a certain way, you go to food. Why? Because you don't want to feel the emotion. And the food not only distracts you from whatever you were thinking about and feeling, the act of eating, but the chemicals in the food also increase the dopamine in your brain, which is the feel good hormone. So it's not what you're eating, it's what's eating you. We need to get to the core of what's eating you, the things that you're struggling with, but you're avoiding with food. So we can prevent emotional eating and learn how to deal with emotions in healthier ways than trying to eat them down. And we can also learn to sit with emotions, which is like super uncomfortable for most people. I don't want to feel my anger. I don't want to feel my sadness. I don't want to feel my fear. That is the way through. There's no way out but through. So, we're going to talk tonight about anger and how to work through anger in a healthy way so that it doesn't lead to emotional eating or other illnesses in your body. So, it's not what you're eating, it's what's eating you. Sometimes, we get angry when somebody or something gets in the way of what we want. Or we might get angry if we see others being treated inappropriately, or we might get angry when we witness something that we know to be wrong. So there are a lot of reasons for people getting angry, but Andy Stanley, who is a pastor, I call him a pastor psychologist. He's not really a psychologist, but he talks about psychological issues all the time. And he says basically, we get mad because we're not getting what we want. So I've been using this with my grandkids. So if they're arguing or fighting, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. You two are arguing, you're fighting. What is it you want? What is it you want? And let's see what we can do about those wants. So if you think about that in your adult world and think about a lot of our anger is because we're not getting what we want. For example, you get mad at your partner because they're not helping you around the house. Well, you're mad because you're not getting the help you want. Or you get mad at your friend because they canceled on you for the walk you had committed to together. You're angry because you're not getting the walking partner that you want. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a thing, right? It's just recognizing that a lot of our anger stems from us not getting what we want. So we can learn to accept that, okay, I'm not getting what I want. What is it I need to do about that? Another way to look at anger, and there's one author I read that talked about anger always points toward a fundamental need that isn't being met. So, what need isn't being met? Had a retreat this past week, and a lot of the women we were talking about emotional eating and how to avoid emotional eating, but looking at what the emotion, whatever it is, mad, sad, happy, excited, nervous, scared, frustrated, what is that need telling me I need? What is that emotion telling me I need from an emotional perspective? In other words, if I'm feeling frustrated, maybe I need to move the energy. If I'm feeling insignificant, maybe I need to ask for affirmation. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, maybe I need assistance. So, one of the things we need to do is learn to recognize what it is we're needing. Our needs are normal, healthy adult needs. Sometimes we get them met in unhealthy ways. So, in the case of anger, maybe maybe I'm needing or wanting that companionship of my friend who canceled on me. So, it's natural that I would feel anger or frustration or disappointment that they're not there. And so I can either yell at them or I can say nothing and hold it in, or I can say, I was really looking forward to our walk together. I am disappointed and frustrated. I understand that things come up. Can we reschedule? So you can handle it in a healthy way or an unhealthy way. And we'll talk about that in relation to anger. But think about for yourself, what am I not getting that I want or need in this situation when you find yourself angry? And if you can learn to express what the want or the need is, it will help you a long way. That's not always easy to do. A lot of people have to learn that skill of identification of what you want and need. That will come in time, but you got to start somewhere. So just knowing that anger is often a representation of not getting something we want or something we need is a good place to start. So that's a little different from injustice, anger at injustice. So we might see a group of people or a person being treated poorly, and we have anger in that regard. It's not necessarily because we're not getting something we want or need, or maybe it is. Maybe we want justice. Maybe we want, humanity to behave a little better toward other people. That's another kind of anger. And then There's what some authors refer to as righteous anger, which we'll talk about, which is when something is when you are harmed or treated poorly, neglected, abused, whatever, and you didn't have any, I mean, you were completely powerless, like children, for example, or a rape victim, or a carjacking victim, or whatever. Those things aren't supposed to happen, right? That's not what's supposed to happen in our life. So this act was done and you were harmed in some way. That's righteous anger, right? This isn't supposed to happen to people, and I'm angry that it did. So we'll talk about righteous anger, but a lot of times anger is about control too, right? If you think about I didn't get what I want or I needed, I'm mad at my husband because he didn't respond the way I wanted him to. Well, that's just a control issue on my part. But I'm going to lash out with anger. So it's a really nuanced, layered issue, this whole business of anger. But we're going to tackle it a little bit tonight and get a start at least. And what does this talk of anger have to do with food and weight? Well, think about it. We've talked about emotional eating briefly here, but sometimes people eat or consume alcohol or shop or do something else, scroll on the phone, get immersed in a book or a television show. None of those things are inherently harmful. However, if we never come back to addressing what we were frustrated with, it's going to be repressed anger, and that will cause harm. So, if you're eating, we're talking about food in this case, if you're eating so that you swallow your feelings, you don't have to feel, that's probably not a good thing, because what I'm doing is I'm shoving that anger within my body where it's going to just recirculate, recirculate, recirculate. And I'll tell you what, if you've ever met somebody who's really sarcastic all the time or kind of pissy and just spitting anger everywhere they go, they've got a lot of repressed anger. They're holding it in. It's just recycling. We've got to learn to get these emotions out in healthy ways. So sometimes people eat so they don't have to feel or deal. That's what I call it. I don't want to feel or deal. I don't want to feel the emotion, and I don't want to deal with the situation. What situation? Maybe it's your boss. Maybe you're having an argument with one of your children. Maybe you're frustrated with traffic. Maybe you're angry with your partner. Maybe it's your parent, your sibling, your cousin, your friend, your whatever, right? Or the airplane is late, or whatever it is. I don't want to feel this anger, and I don't want to deal with the situation. That's not healthy. That leads to excess weight, and it can lead to other health problems because we're shoving all the negative food in, the unhealthy food in, because we don't comfort ourselves with green beans, right? So usually if we're emotionally eating, we're eating a lot of unhealthy, non-nutritious processed foods, which are not going to do our bodies any good. And we're shoving down the feelings and not getting them out, which is also not going to do our bodies any good. So what we need to do in part is learn to sit with the feelings. And I'll talk about that a little later. Huh. What would you say if I suggested you invite those feelings in for a little chat? That's so frightening to so many people. We're going to talk about why that's frightening, especially when it comes to the emotion anger. We want to get rid of the feeling because it's uncomfortable. That's not the healthiest thing to do. And because you and I are people who are choosing to have a healthy life and a healthy lifestyle, we're going to do the healthy thing, which is invite that emotion to sit with us, maybe chat with it a little bit, and then find a healthy way to express it. Oh, yes, you can. All right. So, why do people avoid anger? Not just anger, we avoid a lot of feelings. We avoid fear, um, we want to avoid shame, we want to avoid embarrassment, we want to avoid sadness. What's up with that, right? Why do we want to avoid our feelings? Partly because they scare us, but let's focus in on anger tonight. So, I'm going to tell you a story about when my husband and I went on a vacation with two good friends of ours, a husband and wife. And we were at a timeshare. We have a timeshare. And we were sitting through a timeshare presentation. Never a good idea, right? Never a good idea. Well, sometimes buttons are pushed in sales situations. So Steve and I, we weren't too worked up about it. We already have a timeshare. We knew we were going to say no to this, but our friends were considering it. So we'll call them Lucy and Ricky. Lucy Ricardo and Ricky Ricardo. So we're there with Lucy and Ricky, and Ricky is getting pretty frustrated with the salesperson. And the salesperson, rather than just kind of backing down and de-escalating the situation, obviously was getting triggered in some way. So he was kind of bucking up with, I forgot my friend's name, Lucy and Desi. Not Desi, Ricky. So he's butting up against Ricky. Now Ricky's getting pissed and salesman's getting pissed. And they're kind of getting each other's faces, and they're getting louder and louder and louder and louder, to the point where Ricky shouts, "What do you think I am, stupid?" Now he's yelling. He's clearly very angry, at which point his wife Lucy dissolves into tears. So I leave with Lucy. Steve stays with Ricky to kind of de escalate that situation. And I go out with my friend Lucy, who explains to me that she is very triggered by loud, angry voices, which causes her to get very frightened and cry. Because when she was a child, her father would get very angry and very loud, and she was very frightened. So she had a post traumatic stress reaction to that situation. That's the case for a lot of people. If you grew up in a home where there was a lot of loudness or anger led to physical violence, as a child, you had to be terrified in that situation. So even as an adult, even though you're safe in the present moment, that can trigger that kind of terror. So a lot of people are very, very frightened of loud expressions of anger, because what they've witnessed and learned of anger was that it was abusive. There may have been throwing, there may have been physical violence, screaming or raging, fear reaction, right? Maybe what you witnessed and learned as a child was passive aggressive anger, which means, oh, you're going to know I'm mad, but I'm not going to say a word. I'm going to slam a cupboard. I'm going to give you the silent treatment. I'm going to blame other people for what happened. I'm going to make excuses. I'm going to pout. I'm going to sulk. I'm going to let you know I'm angry, but I'm not going to tell you. Passive aggressive. What's wrong, honey? Nothing. Right? There's clearly something not right. Other reasons that we avoid our feelings is we dismiss our own feelings as being trivial. Yeah, I was really angry when so and so said such and such, but I'm not going to talk about it because it's not that big a deal. Really, it's just not that big of a deal. When inside you may be actually seething. What may be going on there is you don't feel important or valuable enough to say, that was really an unkind thing you said, and I feel angry about it. And if you're feeling not so good about yourself, you're not going to have the skills or the confidence to say that to another person. So sometimes we don't deal with our feelings because we don't feel like we're worth having, standing up for ourselves. Or maybe nobody ever stood up for us. And so we got the message that that's not what you do. You just suck it up, buttercup. We don't want to do that. So don't dismiss your feelings as being trivial. Sometimes we don't express our anger because if I'm angry with you and I let you know I'm angry with you, you might leave me. And maybe I was left by a parent or a sibling or a spouse, and I have this tremendous anxiety and fear about being left. So I don't dare upset you for fear you'll leave, right? So our own wants and needs get in the way of healthy expressions of anger. Sometimes we're afraid of allowing ourselves to have anger because we're afraid that we're going to lose control or we're going to be overwhelmed by these feelings and we're not sure what we'll do with that. Sometimes we have messages from the past, right? Don't tell anybody about what goes on in this house, right? So you may be mad because you saw mom slug dad or dad slug the sibling or, whatever, and you're angry and you're scared. But you've gotten the message, don't you dare talk about that outside of this wall, out of these walls. Don't you dare talk about what's going on. So you have a lot of fear about expressing your emotions about what's really going on. Or maybe this happens a lot with sexual abuse children. They're threatened, right? Don't tell, or this or this or this bad thing will happen. So they keep their fear and they keep their anger recycling. And that can stay recycling for a long, long, long time. And there are health consequences to not expressing that anger. But as a child, you don't know that. So you do keep it in. Sometimes we were told, I'll give you something to cry about. I'll give you something to be mad about, right? So keep your mouth shut. So we learn to keep our mouth shut about any kind of feeling, particularly anger, because you don't want to get slugged across the face or, hit with a belt or whatever the consequence might be. So those are some things from childhood that sometimes keep us from sharing our anger. So, different ways we avoid our feelings, anger being one of the most common, right? Is we preoccupy ourselves with our phones, or maybe we numb ourselves with alcohol or drugs. Maybe we numb ourselves with food. Maybe we numb ourselves by being busy, 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 busy all the time, leaving us no time with ourselves to even acknowledge your feelings, much less work through them. Other ways are taking on constant projects, or you may lose yourself in a book. There's nothing wrong with that until there's something wrong with it, until you're avoiding your life and your responsibilities and the other people in your life. What we're trying to do is to stay away from ourselves. And I spent a lot of years trying to be anywhere but with myself. And it was only when I started spending time with myself, getting honest with myself, learning to recognize my feelings, learning what those feelings were telling me that I needed or wanted, and processing through those with somebody else that I started to heal. So, yes, to become healed from the inside, to recognize and live and experience our worth, we have to heal from the inside. And some of that healing is going to require acknowledging emotions from things going on in the present and maybe things from the past. So, how does unexpressed anger affect your health? I think maybe if you've listened to the past several episodes of the podcast, you're going to know stress. When we avoid our feelings, we increase our stress because we have these emotions, which are energy, circulating through our body, needing to be expressed in healthy ways, but we don't know the healthy ways. We're ill equipped. So we just keep shoving them down. What happens when we have increased stress? We develop physical symptoms. We develop emotional distress, depression, anxiety, social anxiety, isolation. We have relationship conflicts. Because if you're carrying around a lot of frustration or anger toward your partner, your kids, your parents, your coworkers, your bosses, and it's just recirculating and you're not getting it out, it's going to eke out all over the place. You're going to be a miserable, darn human being to be around, I guarantee you, because you're being sarcastic, you're snipping at people, you're short tempered. You're just not really a lot of fun to be around, I guarantee you, unless you have what we call the Al Anon grin of death. The Al-Anon grin of death means I'm going to put on a smiley face and I'm going to sound like a used car salesman because I don't want anybody to know that I'm really hurting on the inside. And so you're going to think I'm the happiest, most cheerful person on the planet. But it's sugary, syrupy fake because on the inside, I'm just like, wah, wah, wah. So you got to be careful of those kinds of people because they're just oozing pain. Also, increased stress, unexpressed anger, headaches, back pain, emotional outbursts, tearfulness, anxiety or jitteriness. Maybe you get diarrhea. Maybe your jaw's clenched and you get pain from that. You might have a lot of insomnia. Your stomach, you might have a lot of GI issues. You might be irritable. You might have some nightmares going on, feel fatigue, have difficulty focusing. So, all of these things can be related to unexpressed feelings and anger in this case. So, I know I've been talking about this book called Goddesses Never Age. It's by Christian. I always call her Christiane because it's got an E at the end of it. I don't know if she says Christian or Christiane. I say Christiane. Northrup. Goddesses Never Age. Well, in the book, she's referring to another doctor named Dr. Mario Martinez, who talks about physical illness and disease being an imbalance of our systems over time that lead to physical problems, physical illnesses. And he identifies, so check this out. He identifies the causes of health. And I love how they say that. The things that cause good health are compassion, joy, spending time with people you like, laughter, love, focusing on the positive. And he says righteous anger, which he defines as allowing yourself to feel angry when your innocence has been violated. Think sexual abuse or a child who was dismissed or criticized or compared or just constantly poked at. You know, their innocence has been violated. That he refers to as righteous anger. And also, he says it doesn't matter if the violation took place years earlier. Feeling this righteous anger, you had no right to touch me like that. You had no right to compare me to my sister my entire life. You had no right to scream at me and scream at me and scream at me. You had no right to hit me. You had no right to give me the silent treatment, right? Those are important things to get out of you, even if they happened a long time ago, as well as the things that are happening today, right? Saying to a partner, I feel angry when you talk to me that way. I'm not going to stay here and listen to that. That's a healthy expression of anger. But we've got to get it out of your system to improve your health. And there's so much of this information in the book, Goddesses Never Age, which is so, so important. Um, so they talk about, and I really believe this, we store our emotions in our bodies and they can remain there for years. And it's not just this doctor who's talking about it. There are many physicians and researchers who are talking about the fact that we can hold on to emotions for years. You've heard of the book When the Body Says No, maybe. You've heard of the book, oh God, now I can't think of it. The Body Keeps the Score. These are all doctors talking about how these unexpressed emotions are causing health in our bodies. So, what they're saying in this book is that unexpressed emotions of anger, grief, sadness, shame are listen carefully, are a serious threat to health and well being. So, if you know that you're carrying around a bunch of crap from the present and or the past and you're not getting it out in a healthy way, you're causing yourself some health damage. That leads to cellular degeneration, inflammation, all sorts of physical ailments that we associate with aging, like Alzheimer's disease. Again, still in this book, Goddesses Never Age, they say you must process your emotions. You do that by learning what need they signify, which I was talking about at the very beginning. We'll talk about that again in a minute. and then releasing them through movement, sound, words, tears, writing, verbal expression. They say there's no need to fear the emotions that come up because they won't last forever or overwhelm you. And that's what a lot of people think. I thought that too when I went to treatment. I'm like, I don't want to feel these feelings because if I start, I'll never stop. If I start crying, I'll never stop. I've never seen that happen, but I've heard a lot of people say it. So you might think they will, but the good news is we're designed to feel and release emotions regularly and easily. So, what I kind of described this as in my own experiences, like when I first started expressing my emotions, it felt like a damn volcano was erupting and erupting and erupting. And it felt like it was never going to quit. And it felt hot and it felt painful and it felt miserable and it was just awful. And then as I continued in therapy and I continued to learn skills, then as things would happen in my life that either resurrected some of those old feelings or it was a current situation, there was a little spraying of the volcano, but it was never like that first explosion. So now I'm able to experience the emotion. And for the most part, there are exceptions, I guarantee you. For the most part, though, I'm able to express my emotions, whether they're sad, mad, glad, scared, angry, frustrated, whatever it is, in a appropriate, healthy way. Now, surgery does not deal with emotional eating. It doesn't cure emotional eating. So you have to learn the skills that I'm talking about right now. You have to learn the skills that you're not equipped with. And you will not be equipped with those through the process of surgery. You will only be equipped with those if you seek them out. And this Berry Aftercare program is a great way to learn some of those skills. I'm teaching them to you right now, in fact. So we'll talk a lot about this in just a minute. Again, the feelings aren't going to last forever. They're not going to take you over. Um, they're not going to do you in. You will get through it. I promise you. The more you try to avoid heartache or anger or, you try to drink it away or smoke it away or eat it away, the worse the pain gets and the deeper it gets buried. So again, in this book, Goddesses Never Age, they say anger, fear, sadness, betrayal, abandonment, and shame are the more challenging emotions we tend to avoid to our detriment. Shame is the most negative because it stops us from facing other emotions. Okay, so they also say these emotions serve as our innate guidance system, alerting us to what we truly need and what we need to change. So, as you go through the process of getting out of that first year, having a full time job of eating and whatever, it's time to learn the skills to have a healthy life all the way around. So, you don't need to numb yourself with food, or you don't transfer to alcohol to numb your emotions, or you don't transfer to shopping or sleeping around to numb yourself. You take the time to get in touch with who you are and what your emotions can teach you about you and how to live a healthier lifestyle overall and how you can create a healthy internal environment so you don't get these diseases. You've lost the weight. Now there's probably more you can do in other areas to ensure your overall health. So let's talk about what a healthy expression of anger can look like. All right. An emotional expression is a healthy one when it matches the feeling you're having, but it doesn't hurt anybody else. So if I'm feeling anger, now anger is my go to emotion. And for a lot of people, myself included, anger is usually a cover for some other emotions. Like usually when I'm angry, if I spend enough time dissecting it, I'm hurt or I'm sad or I'm scared, but it's going to come up in anger because for me, anger is easy. For other people, anger is not easy. But a healthy expression of emotion is if you're angry, you say, I'm angry. If you're angry, a healthy expression is acknowledging the anger and letting somebody know about the, oh, I could never do that. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want them to leave. Well, it's layered. We got to work through the fact that if you're going to take care of yourself in life, you need to learn to express your anger. But in therapy, you can talk about, I'm afraid to express it because I'm afraid they'll leave. Well, where did that come from? And is that true in this situation? And what would happen if they left? Can't do all that deep stuff yourself. But if you have trouble expressing your anger, get some help with a therapist who can help you peel through those layers so that you can learn to say, here's a healthy expression of anger. Honey, when you said you'd take the garbage out and you didn't, and it falls out all over the floor, I feel angry because you're not home and I was left to clean it up. I would appreciate if you would take the garbage out like you said you would. Boom, done. Now I'm not carrying that anger in me. I didn't lash out at you. I didn't call you names. I didn't berate you, leaving you feel bad and me feel bad, right? I simply said, when this happens, I feel angry. This is why. Here's what I would appreciate. Because think about it. When I'm angry because I didn't get what I wanted. I didn't get what I wanted, which was my husband to do what he said he would do. What was the need that I had there emotionally? I had the need for trust in my husband, him doing what he says he's going to do. So, what do I need in this moment? I need to let this anger out. I have choices. So, let's talk about the choices that we have when we feel anger, right? And unfortunately, there's a lot of unconscious stuff going on in our expressions of anger. So if you lash out at people, or if you shut down, or if you take it out on yourself and turn it inward and become depressed, you need to get some help to learn what this is about for you. But there are three main approaches for expressing anger. You can express it, and it can be expressed in a healthy way or an unhealthy way. It can be suppressed, and there's a calming method, or there's a calming element, right? So if you suppress anger, then what you're doing is holding it in. You don't allow yourself to think about it, and you focus on something else. So the idea is here, you don't want to deal with the anger, but you want to convert it to something more positive. But the danger here is if you don't acknowledge it, even if it's to yourself. Oh, I'm really angry right now, and this is what I'm angry about. Then it can be turned inward on yourself. And that can cause high blood pressure. It can cause depression. It can cause irritability. And so that's not a good solution. However, there are times when it makes sense to say it would be really inappropriate for me to express this anger at this time in this place. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to encapsulate that in my mind in this ball or this box, and I'm going to put it on a shelf in my mind. I'm not going to keep it there forever. When I go home tonight, I'm going to talk to my husband about it. I'm going to journal about it. I'm going to call my friend, or I'm going to scream all the way home in my car. I'm going to get it out. But in this time, in this place, it's not wise. So that's putting it on a shelf. It's not eating it and suppressing it and recirculating it for years and years and years, right? So there are moments to encapsulate it to bring it out later. Unexpressed anger can cause other problems. It can lead to passive aggressive behavior, which, as I said, is like, I'm not going to tell you you're angry, but by God, you're going to know it. So you're getting back at people, but it's called indirect or sideways without telling them why, leaving them confused or reacting to your treatment of them. And so now we got all this icky mess between me and you. That's not healthy. That's not what I want. I want to be close to you. But if I'm not telling you why I'm angry, but I'm acting it out, then you're going to be pissy with me. And now we got a pissing match going on. That is no good. All right. So, or maybe I'm going to blame other people or belittle other people or criticize everything and make cynical comments. And it's like, who wants to be around me? Nobody, if I'm behaving like that, right? And then you're going to have trouble with relationships. So when we internalize this anger, or when we don't express it, or when it comes out sideways, passive aggressively, it really messes with our mind, our mental health, and our physical health. I might be aggressive toward myself. In other words, I'm going to engage in unhealthy behaviors like overeating, or self destructive behavior like drinking too much, or other self destructive behavior like having sex with 10 people in unprotected ways. It's when we act out our anger in indirect, unhealthy ways, it is not going to serve us or anyone else in a good way. So, first step may be to calm yourself down. So, the first thing you do is, if you feel this volcano of anger, or if you feel whatever you experience, maybe it's a clenched jaw, maybe it's a withdrawing within yourself, maybe it's a clenched fist, maybe it's a tightness in your chest or in your stomach. When you learn to recognize what anger feels like in your body, then the first thing you might want to do is to calm yourself down. How do you calm yourself down? Well, you want to divert. You want to distract yourself in some way. So you can do the deep breathing, right? Inhale, exhale longer. Inhale, exhale twice as long. Inhale, exhale for twice as long. Because you want to calm down so you don't react inappropriately. Or you can play with a pet, or you can watch something that makes you laugh, or listen to something that makes you laugh, or just spend a few minutes in quiet. You want to calm down so that you can choose a healthy expression of your anger. So, expressing in an assertive way. Now, here's a problem for a lot of people in the bariatric community. They are not assertive because they haven't felt worthwhile enough to be assertive, or they were told as a child long ago, don't you be talking about your feelings, or that, whatever it was. So there's a lot of baggage that prevents people from not having the ability, having the skills to express their anger. So again, if this is tough for you, you've got to get help. You're not going to just get over it, right? So calm yourself down, and then an assertive expression of anger is just simply writing down or saying out loud or talking to your friend, you know what? When the boss criticized my work, my ego was hurt. I felt angry because I put a lot of time and effort into that, and it wasn't what they were looking for. When my mom called me overly reactive, I felt angry and hurt because I felt dismissed by her. What I need is to be able to be who I am and share how I feel. When you, my friend, you know, canceled our date, like we said at the beginning, I felt frustrated and hurt. So expressing it is just saying what it is, the reason you felt that way, and what you would like. When you, boom, or when this happened, fill in the blank, I felt angry because, what's the reason you were angry? What I would appreciate is, all done, it's out of you, you've shared it, doesn't have to be a big hairy deal. Now, if I scream that at you, it's not going to be met well, right? We can learn this, we can practice it, we can rehearse it, we can write it all out. You can use that format. When blank, when you didn't take the garbage out, I felt angry because there was a mess that I had to clean up. I would appreciate you doing what you say you're going to do. There are a million examples, right? When you hung up the phone on me, I felt angry because I felt dismissed and unimportant. I would appreciate if you would have more respect for me and not hang up on me. There are 1,000 ways you can do that. It's a learned skill. It requires a tremendous amount of practice. And if you've got other underlying issues that make it difficult for you to do this, you need to get some help. Okay, so here's what we need to do to practice healthy anger. Take that time out. Sit with yourself before you react in an unhealthy way. So just sit, acknowledge how you feel, calm yourself down, and make a plan so that you don't not overreact, but react in an unhealthy way. And maybe ask yourself, what other emotions are tangled up in this anger? Am I sad? Do I feel let down? Am I frightened? Because again, sometimes fear can be a cover for other emotions. So recognize what's going on. What is this telling me I need or want? So maybe I need a timeout. Maybe I need some companionship. Maybe I need some affirmation. And a lot of times you're not going to be able to figure this out until after the fact. That's okay. For now, learn how to calm yourself and then express the anger in a healthy way. Always look at yourself rather than point to others. She made me mad. He made me mad. They did this. It's their fault. If they hadn't said this, I wouldn't have done that. Look at yourself. They may have done those things, but you've done something. So the only thing you can change is yourself. So the only question to ask is, what's my part? What is my part in this situation? And how can I handle that? And then be kind to yourself. Don't be like, oh my God, I so blew it. Even if you blow it, right? Even if I scream and shout at my husband or whatever, rather than beating myself up, which it might lead to overeating or drinking or smoking or whatever, say, you know what? I really, really made a mess of that. I can love myself still. I can forgive myself. And I'm going to go apologize and make amends for how I hurt another person. So be kind to yourself rather than beating yourself over the head. And then learn what some healthy options for expressing anger are. Maybe you need to sit and cry. Maybe you need to sit in your car and scream and shout and holler where nobody can get hurt. Maybe you need to move because when I'm filled with anger, I have a lot of energy and I need to walk. My treadmill is great for me when I really need to get some anger out. Maybe you need to curl up under a blanket and just be still and be with yourself and say, I'm really hurt, I'm angry, I'm scared. And just be with yourself until you have the clarity of mind to write out what you're thinking or feeling or talk to the person that you need to talk to. Maybe listen to some music, play with a pet, be silly with a kid, create some art, sing, turn to a trusted person. Do what you have to do to calm yourself down and process it out and then practice. Practice the healthy expression of the anger. Speak your mind when it's appropriate. Having healthy anger or expressing your anger in healthy ways means learning how to communicate assertively, not aggressively. Last year, I did a whole series about communication skills, and I'm going to do another whole series with a little different slant again later this year because having the communication skills and learning to recognize that you are valuable enough to be assertive, meaning not aggressive, not nasty, but to say, no, I'm not going to allow you to talk to me that way. Or if you're going to behave this way, I'm going to take myself somewhere else for a while and I'll come back. And if you can calm down and talk to me appropriately, we'll have that conversation. But it's learning to have healthy emotional regulation, whatever that means, right? Behaving appropriately, behaving like an adult instead of exploding or being passive aggressive. So here's some invitations for you to do. If you're struggling with this kind of thing, sign up for the Gain While You Lose class. It starts on September 11th, 2023. So if you're listening to this after that, don't worry. I do it every spring, I do it every fall. It's live and you can sign up for it. Just go to my website, www.conniestapletonphd.com, and you can learn about that class. But you can also join the Berry Aftercare program by going to www.berryaftercare.com, where we talk about skills and healthy living and healthy eating and healthy communication all the time. all kinds of skills. Go to www.berryaftercare.com. And remember, until then, we're talking about your health, and it's your responsibility, your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health. Next week on Berry Aftercare, oh my goodness, much lighter conversation. I have one of the most delightful women on the podcast, Shay Quinn. And Shay is actually the host of her own podcast called Grow with Shay. I told her she glows, so it might be called Glow with Shay. She's delightful. And she's also a co-host on another podcast called The Waiting Table, WEIGHT, The Waiting Table. You'll relate to her so much because she is so, so, so genuine. She's a post-op. She's a go-getter. She's amazing. She talks about experiencing her worth. You'll love hearing that. So, as always, your health, your responsibility. Join me next time. Share the podcast. Really appreciate your time. See you soon.